Hi everyone, welcome to Tech Down Over. I'm Riggs Zanatti, and I'm joined today by my good friend from Down Under, Geoff Blanchard. How are you, Geoff?
Good, thank you, Rick. So I hope you're not having any more shakes over there. Bit cold here, but at least we're not getting shaken around.
No, we haven't had, at least where we are. They're having lots of shakes where the earthquake was. Where we are, the last one we felt was last Friday, and it went on for over a minute. It was not fun. But it wasn't violent. It was just sort of wee. And people were claiming they got a little bit dizzy. I think it was affecting the inner ear because it was such a gentle movement. But our house was going up, down. It was doing this. And I kept being afraid that it was going to stop here.
And then you get to be on an angle.
Then what do? You can't fix that. I don't know. That's a little scary. The whole neighborhood would have been like this. So anything's possible. But anyway, joining us today is also Harold Muliati, who is running the video mixer and audio. Here we go. And here we are. Well, you know, it's interesting. The earthquakes always wake you up. No matter how tired or what you're doing, an earthquake immediately makes you go, huh? What's going on? What are we doing here? And I remember when the last one hit, we didn't feel the one Thursday, though I think Harold did. Leslie was standing next to me. It was about 8:19 at night. And I go, earthquake. And she's like, what? Sit. And she's like, sits down on the floor. Don't move. She was going to go run and get the dog. Go, no, sit down. The dog's fine. Dog was sleeping. Let the dog sleep. You know, it wasn't a violent quake, but when you walk around during a quake, things can fall on you. Don't run around. It's safer to just stay still and ride it out. And then you figure out what happened. But it was interesting. And they're not fun. But such is our joy out here in Southern California.
I said we don't have them. I think we've had one tremor we've felt, and that's really strange because we don't have them. You just don't know. So what's happening? There's a big truck going past the front door or something.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going past. And I think we've only ever felt one, but it might have been a 2 or something like that. So it's nothing.
And they
compared
said
to
usually until you get to about 3s, you don't even really feel them that much.
Yeah, I think there actually are a bunch that are smaller, but people just generally don't feel them.
You probably think it's a truck going by, like you said, or something else. But, now the technology's gotten better because right after the first one happened, which was a 6.4 on the Richter scale, Dr. Lucy something or other from JPL said, well, you can expect within the next week or two a 6.9. The next day, we had a 6.9 that eventually got upgraded back to a 7.1. So I was going, she hit that one pretty well. The sensors are better now, but they obviously don't want to tell you what's going on because if they did, you'd have mass panic. We have enough traffic on our freeways without everybody freaking out.
I suppose if you have, my theory is if you're having some little earthquake, it's releasing some pressure. So at least if it doesn't do anything at all, something's going to give. So at least if you're getting bits and pieces, it's not causing too much damage. That's better than it all building up. So.
No, and think about it, Geoff. We live almost 200 miles from that quake, and it moved us for over a minute. That's a lot of power generated. We're talking major release. GasX Turbo. It's a lot of release. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Hey, we discovered something, Geoff, that other people probably know, but we didn't, at least in-house. Did you know that if you are running monitors with HDMI ports, HDMI cables, there's a good chance your text will be blurrier, especially if they're high-quality monitors. But if you put them on a DisplayPort, they sharpen up and even get a little bit brighter.
Oh, well, I've never used HDMI on my computer for my home ones, but I'll have to give that a go at work, because at work there tend to be the Dells have all the HDMI.
The Dells have HDMIs, and they also have display ports, lots of display ports, and it made a difference on the Dell. On the Asus that I've got 2 of them at home. Wow, it was like night and day. I was going to get rid of them, and I went, oh my gosh, it's a new monitor. It sharpened it quite a bit, and it made the colors just brighter and crisper. Wow, night and day difference. And the same with the Apples. If you've got, now Thunderbolt works pretty well too for the most part, so you should be okay on the Apple. But if you've got an external monitor on an Apple and you can do a display, I don't think Apple carries display ports on like iMacs and stuff.
They actually have.
Yes.
They do, but a lot of times it's the port looks different because it's the mini display port rather than the full size.
They have them on the MacBooks, I think, on the MacBook Pros. Yeah. But that makes a difference supposedly too. It makes it very clear. So
supposedly the signals there's slightly less lossy compression on the signal going through DisplayPort, especially with modern graphics cards and all that.
Yeah. Now the other thing that's interesting is, people when they look for monitors are always looking for resolution. They want 4K, 5K. And resolution's important, so is brightness. And it's funny what people don't look at. One of them is brightness, how many nits, how bright is that monitor. And when you find out how bright the monitors are, you might be surprised. You think they're 500, 600, 700 nits. They're usually about 350. You might get 400 or 500, but it's rare. And if you want like the Pro monitors, they're usually somewhere in the 400 to 600 realm, but they can get up to, some of them, 1,000 nits, which means you don't really have a 1,000 nit monitor that can do it consistently for a long period of time. But it can do it for certain things like flashes and everything for a short period of time. So when you're looking at good monitors like the LGs, which are making the Apple monitors, for example, the Cinema, they don't make the Cinema monitor anymore. Now they're using a 5K, I think, LG, and it looks really good if you go to the Apple store. It's a really nice looking monitor, 27-inch, not 32. And it has a real sharp, clean look with about 1,000 nit occasionally. I mean, it can get there here and there. So they're bright. They're very bright. It looks like you're on a tablet more than it does a monitor. And Apple's always had good monitors, but there's one other thing to look for, and that's the pixels per inch. And when you start looking at monitors, if you look at Windows monitors, they rarely go over like 106 pixels per inch. I think the Apple monitor is, what was it on? 210?
218.
Oh. 218.
For one of their newer 27 inches. But I mean, part of that is just because the monitors tend to be a bit smaller.
Right, but if you look at a 218 pixel per inch monitor versus a 106 inch pixel per inch, 106 pixel per inch.
And this is when you're running them at 5K.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to look a heck of a lot nicer at 200 plus pixels. You're getting close to Retina. At 300, you're at Retina display. And the regular Windows monitors and gaming monitors really aren't high pixel counts per inch because it takes too much hardware to drive a video card that can get you games or anything that fast at anything more than 60 hertz. So it's really interesting. And at 60 hertz, 60,000 frequencies per second versus or 60 hertz, 60 kilohertz. But it is interesting. The monitors aren't that fast when you're doing good graphics or video. They're really fast when you want gaming. And those monitors usually don't look that good. They just look good for gaming. And they have good color, but not really good sharp resolution. It's just sort of interesting.
Oh, and there is a disclaimer, like we were talking about DisplayPort cables versus HDMI cables earlier. If you go out and get cables to get them, be sure to keep in mind, especially if you're using Windows will try to switch your audio device when you, even if it's the same monitor, you change the cable, it's going to think it's a different device, and it's going to switch your default audio to that monitor.
Yeah.
So
it's a beautiful feature of Windows, which costs a lot of time debugging why your audio is not working anymore.
Yeah, it's nice if it says I'm about to switch your audio, but you don't know, and then it keeps doing that as well.
Well,
so,
you know,
Rick,
Geoff,
with that monitor.
Go ahead.
So I was going to say, with that Apple monitor, but what's the sort of pricing? That's quite pricey, though, isn't it?
No, I thought that was only about $1,400 at the store. It wasn't that bad.
So is that their new monitor?
I think it's their new 27-inch monitor. It's not the new one that hasn't come out yet. That's $4,900.
The one that goes with the Mac Pro, the one that's with the Mac
Yeah.
Pro, because I thought that's about
$4,900 and another,
yeah,
and $1,000 for the stand.
yeah, that's what I thought. Gee, I thought you giving that glowing reports. I thought, gee, that sounds like more than my whole computer setup is. I think for that one monitor.
I know. And I don't know. I don't really like the cheese grater design that much. I think that's why Johnny Ives quit. He was the main designer for the Brit, who was the main designer for Apple. After 16 years, he finally quit. And he said before he quit, or he said that some time ago. He said, "I will continue working until I get bored." And so he's either bored or he got fed up. One of the two. Who knows?
Or maybe he's just run out of ideas and there's nothing left. So
maybe.
And it's just. It's always the thing where they always have him saying it's thinner, lighter, and smaller. He said, well, you're going to come out and say it's fatter, heavier, and slower than the previous one? You're not. Nobody's going to say that.
Twiggy is out. Now we have something new.
Oh, now watch it. We'll have, Macs going inside out and all sorts. Now different people will come in, different designs will have with flip side double monitors fold out.
Yeah.
An iMac with a fold out, so it'll have 3 monitors. Hey, that would be a good idea.
That'd be kind of cool, actually.
Gaming with a flip out, one with 3 27-inch monitors, one in there and 2 flip out the side.
That'd be kind of cool.
And all in one styled after a medieval scroll that you just.
Well, that's right, and I mean, see, now the restrictions are off. Somebody new that can say, "Let's revolutionize this."
But like somebody said, he's leaving, but the designs they have are now up for about 2 to 5 years more. So we're going to see his stuff for a good 2 to 5 years, because this is all pre-planned already and probably in pre-production. So a lot of people think that the minute they finish one, they're going to start the new design. These things are designed 5-10 years ahead of its time. So it'll be interesting to see how many things come out that were designed by Johnny Ives versus brand new something or other. It'll be.
I feel sorry for him now. He's quit. Now what will he do for money? Oh.
I think he's rich. He probably has enough stock he's done. But Leslie and I went to the Apple store last weekend, and I have to admit, I'm looking at the iMac Pro, not the Pro. Piece of whatever, who cares?
This is the iMac
but the
Pro,
iMac Pro, the 5K monitor, kind of looks nice. The text is so darn clean on it, and then again, you have 200 and something pixels per inch. Text looks beautiful. You're looking at the Windows stuff; it's kind of slightly pixelated. It just doesn't look like crap. But I was looking at that, going, "Wow, that looks really, really nice." And even Leslie was going, "I want one."
But the only thing that killed Macs, and I think I would suffer from this, is yes, it looks fantastic, but it looks exactly the same as the one from 2011.
I know.
Whereas if they put that one out, it had the same sort of feature, but made a new design, got rid of the bezel, do something, make it twice. 32 inch as opposed to 27 inch.
I wish it would go up in size, but they won't.
Even if it was exactly the same machine, but just so people who've got the iMac like I have would say, "Oh, I need the iMac Pro," and I think they would sell much more, because I would probably be tempted to say, "That's a different look. I'll get that one as well."
Well, here's another problem: for $5,000, you get the same screen, you get maybe some more features, but you don't get anything really that much faster. They're still about the same, and so you go. Why? This is the only reason we really use PCs, is they're just a lot faster. The Mac is slow. They can't even keep up with the PCs. When you get the good video cards and the fast SSDs, they just don't keep up. And you can modify a PC, and you can't with a Mac, not easily, especially when they solder everything in just to be jerks. And that's the problem with the Mac. Other than that, there's one thing. For example, I've had Mac. We have Macs in here. We've got 2 or 3 of them. And there's one thing interesting about the Mac. Harold and I were talking about this week. Why does it look so much better on the Mac with text and everything else? And even though I've had Macs, I never really understood this. I knew Macs in the beginning always had better color because the color tables or whatever were actually built into the OS. But it was better than that. The Mac does one thing very, very smartly, with which Windows never did, because the people who design Windows are complete morons. And if you're listening, Microsoft, you're morons. You really are, because you allowed the kernel to be violated by any and everyone. Apple does not allow people to violate the kernel of the OS, which is brilliant. It's the way it should be. If you look at the books that Microsoft writes about standards, they say you shouldn't violate the kernel, and then they violate it. But what happens is every pixel written to a screen by an Apple computer is controlled by the operating system. In Windows, it's controlled by the application. And that's why we have such crappy looking applications half the time. They're not writing well to graphics or anything else, or to text. They're not using TrueType fonts as well, whatever they're doing. And Apple, on the other hand, is very consistent. They have beautiful fonts on the screens. It always looks good no matter what you do. The fonts look good. No matter how much you scale it up or down, they always look darn good. And that's because they have better processing controlled by one source and one source only, and everybody writes to those libraries rather than create their own. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's amazing the difference, because like I'm a Mac user, and there's some things I use on Windows, but I'll prefer to use it on the Mac. But it's just the work environment, like you said. The Macs are probably slower, but it's just they're much more of a pleasure to work on. Like when I'm doing the e-learning with Captivate, I just love the way it feels on the the Mac. And I'm doing exactly the same work as I do on a Windows machine, but it's hard to explain that. I get more enjoyment looking at that screen of a Mac.
It's true.
So, and it's
true.
I just don't know how to explain.
Now, do you have a Mac at work too?
I don't know.
You don't.
Unfortunately,
So it's only at home.
Yeah. So if I could convince them to do that, I would certainly do that and have a Mac at the same time. But as you said, with that iMac Pro, one of the good things with that is if you're doing a lot of video editing, yes, much faster for that. But things like if you're not doing the video editing, some of the standard things are slower on that than they are on my Mac. It's because it does the faster things, the more intensive things faster, but some of the day-to-day things it does a bit slower. Not that the things I would probably notice.
Well, okay, the machines you have at work, for example, aren't the kind of machines we're building.
No, definitely
we don't notice that. It's super fast. When we do video editing here, it just cranks because we've got the big 1070s, 1080s, 2080s. So we've got the big NVIDIA cards. And lots of memory, water-cooled everything. These things run fast. And so there we do notice a difference. Now, I went back to the old Mac, the one that you and I had first, which looks nice. Yes. I think it was, 2011, 2012 model, something like that. It's when they first changed. They look really good. And it has a 1080p screen. No, actually, it's a quantum, it's a QHD screen. So it's
2550 by 1440, I think.
Yeah, and it looks, and even today, when you look at it, it still looks sharp. It's still bright. Did you keep your old one?
Yes, I've got I'm on my old one now. That's well, I think on this. I'm just having. This is the. This is the 2012 one.
That's the one you and I have. Yep.
Yeah, and then we had the earlier ones. You had the one with the
square. They were thicker.
The big one, with the DVD drive that you could
we
cook
had two
your dinner
of those.
They got so hot. Used to get so hot when you
could cook an egg
videos.
on it.
Yeah, that's right. It was so hot. But I think you've still got one of them at home in your.
No, it broke.
Did you? You had one in your
half of the screen went black, and we said we're done. They wanted $1,000 to fix it. We went, you can keep it. So that was the end of that one. But we did video editing on that one. We did professional video editing. It worked fine. That was with Final Cut Pro 6 and 7 back then, which looked like, because it came from Premiere. Because the Premiere developer is the one who went to Apple afterwards and made it look almost exactly the same.
Because I'm on the 2012 here, but the one upstairs is a 2017.
That's the 5K, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is
that's
just
a
the one
beautiful
before
screen
that.
on
But
that thing.
these are still the thin ones, and I couldn't bear to get rid of this because I thought it's so good. I'll have it down here. It's an excellent one for doing when I'm doing the audio recording and all that. So that's the thing is this. How many? But still, most of the time, how many PCs from 2012 would you still be using? It'd be probably in the bin by now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't think we have any right now. We may have one or two, but very few.
But it is slowing down. It's getting better, where PCs are starting to last longer because there's not that much difference in them these days. Whereas,
well, this isn't really a usual thing. But my previous computer, I was actually was a PC that I was using from 2007 to 2018.
Oh,
I mean, I upgraded stuff in it, but it did. It worked fine.
Hey, Rick, with switching the thing a little bit, I've been seeing coming out from Microsoft is the new version of Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Oh, they are going to do one?
For the Xbox, so. But if you have a look for the Xbox if you have a look online, that looks like it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be the thing that will make me buy an Xbox.
I may have to buy an Xbox because I love Flight Simulator.
But this one, it's like the best flight simulator when we was used to Microsoft, but now all the scenery is like a video. It's you're there. You can fly over the thing. You see in Africa, you're seeing the animals on the prairies when you're flying down with Cessna but it hasn't come out. It's due late this year, I think, or early next year.
Now, is it called Flight Simulator still? Because they sold that to someone else.
No, it's still Microsoft Flight Simulator. But because
you have a look, they had killed it. I mean, they literally killed the product, sold it off. It's mostly owned by another company.
Did they sell the rights to make it on PC to someone else?
Maybe that was
they have it on Steam. It's not on PC. Now it's not on PC. It's on Xbox.
It's on Steam.
So maybe that's different.
It's still on Steam, and it's not called Microsoft Flight. It's just called Flight Simulator.
And a friend of mine came up with a good idea. Said what they should do with it. Now it's all joined up online with Xbox. What they should do is have a flight simulator, but also have it so you can be a passenger. So you could book into a flight that I do and sit in the back and see what happens. You could look out the windows. Oh, when it's turbulent, and say Jeff's not flying, and say, hey, talk to the captain. And say, could you quieten down a bit? And then, that would be fun, wouldn't it? You say seatbelt signs are on, and then it would be
what did you see that? Was that on YouTube?
It's on YouTube, yeah, and it looks quite interesting.
I gotta go check it out.
That's the sort of thing I'm going to keep when it's announced. Then I'll get the Xbox, but I wouldn't get an Xbox beforehand because
and for all you know, they may have a new version of it or something at that point.
But it's. I thought that would be worth the while just to get the Xbox because
now, is it as realistic as the old Flight Simulator, or did they make it better, more gaming like?
It's like a video. It's hard to. Those videos where you can just tell that it's computer generated person. Yeah. That's how good it is, but it looks like, but you just know there's just that slight off thing that that it's generated. But when you're looking at planes go in the tarmac and all the buildings, but it's got all up to date, things that you're flying over. So it's not just. It looks like you're actually flying in there.
So I wonder if you'll be able to do add-ons like you can with the real Flight Simulator, where you can do extra airports and everything else, because that's where the money was. People built all sorts of beautiful flight scenery, like Mega Scenery has great scenery when you're flying into like LA or Melbourne or wherever you're flying, and you just go, wow, this is amazing. It's like you're really flying into the city. And I've been a real Flight Simulator fan, but nowadays it's okay, but I don't, even though Steam has gotten a little bit better with that version of Flight Simulator, it still is about 10, 11 years old. It's an old version of it was Flight Simulator 10 or X, which came out a long time ago.
I still find that the Microsoft one better. Whoever took those, I had other ones after that.
X-Plane is good, but it's hard.
Not as good. It's not the same sort of feel. No. Microsoft has it's better. I don't know why. I just don't know why they finished.
Flying is actually better in X-Plane. They have true, correct dynamics. It's much more accurate, but they also make it a lot harder. So
if you're not
for me and you,
pilot,
we probably like to enjoy the make-believe we're pilots and have a good time, but not get into flicking every switch on Earth. It just, that takes too long. After a full day's work, you don't want to do that. Yeah, makes it
I think
difficult.
even the last one on the last one on Microsoft was the one I just could never handle. I could never take off the Concorde because that was just too
Concorde.
that was just too fast for me. So
well, it's very
I could
realistic.
never
It
do
exploded when you took off. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Trail of flames from there. So.
Yeah, that's sad. But yeah, it's really interesting. What were you saying, Harold?
Well, it does sound interesting. I mean, on the other hand, to me, Flight Simulator not on PC seems a little bit wrong, but you know, I'll check it out.
Yeah,
but then you never know. They probably will release a joystick because I don't know on the Xbox you just have the little things that they'll release a joystick that'll cost you $500. It'll release something else that'll cost you. There'll be an online subscription so you can have
they should be able to use the existing joysticks because they have USB ports on the.
Oh, do they?
Oh.
They do. So they should be able to use them with minor changes. Because some of those, the SciTech and CH products, they make some beautiful products for these things.
The last one I used to have was the Microsoft one. Had the force feed, and then if you had the helicopter, it used to while you were taking off, and it used to be fighting against you. It was really good when shaking when it was a helicopter. And
that's fun. Yeah, so I'll look out for that because that sounds like a blast. I would love to see a better flight sim. I was been wondering, with all the technology we have today, other than X-Plane, nobody's really doing a lot of good simulators. And I'm like you, I like X-Plane, but I don't like it that much. It's okay. It's getting better, but it's still more work than I want to do.
Hey, another one that was very easy to do, long and time consuming, which I don't know. I can understand why that went by the wayside, was Microsoft Train Simulator.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so the whole thing, you had to take the engine, you had to reverse, shunt back, pick up carriages, say now go and get 2 carriages. But the thing was, then it said, I'm sorry, you've killed all your passengers because you slammed the brakes on too fast.
That's right.
And then you've killed them all. So you had to go, and then you overshot the train station, but you went in all these different cities. But I thought it was long, but it used to be good fun. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't as much happening as Flight Simulator. But you had to do other things. You had to make sure the thing had switched the track so you could shunt back and pick up all the carriages.
I'm sure it saved many lives by crushing the dreams of many would-be conductors.
That's right. That's right. So, because just stopping dead and.
Hey, tell us, I know we're almost out of time, but tell us quickly about your story going into Mad Max's homeland two weeks ago, trying to do some filming.
In Ballarat. What's it?
Yeah.
It's that. Well, I went the other week. I thought I'll take the camera out. I thought I haven't been out, make it a special trip there, and it was such a horrible day. I wish I'd stayed home. So I got out, and it was howling a gale, pouring with rain, and I think it was about 3 degrees, and it was just so terrible. I had lunch, and then I came back home. I'll put something. I've got dash cam footage of me trip there and back, but it was so pouring down with rain. I didn't even get the GH5 out. So.
But from the way you were describing it, it sounded like Mad Max is alive and he's well in that town.
That's the old gold mining town of Ballarat. Is that Mad Max there? Because I've never seen Mad Max,
You've never seen it? Okay.
No.
Yeah, that would be like Thunderdome.
Yeah, I've never seen that. So
I didn't like them. I watched the first one and part of the third one. I got bored. But I don't know. I like Mel Gibson, but I didn't really care for those. Those are some of the first movies he made after Gallipoli. And they were just, it's okay. I'm not into those, end of the world movies. And
some people like them. They only, all I think of Mad Max, and a lot of people can relate to this, is like Waterworld. I never saw that.
Yeah,
but
same idea.
It reminds me of how, that was sort of a big flop. But Mad Max was actually quite popular for most people. But
they all called him the new Steve McQueen and everything else, and he became very popular, but not for that kind of movie. He did better action adventure, and just he's a good actor. But yeah,
and that's how movies work. There's a lot of audience for it. There's not everybody likes them, and that's where there's always. And some of the movies I like the best are the ones that everybody hates, because they're usually if they're complicated and hard to figure out, most people don't like them. They just want something easy, but they sometimes turn out to be the great films. Like you see a lot of these big drawn-out epics, really they go there, fight a few people, and come back. That's all the story is. But it takes 4 hours to tell you that.
Yep.
And you said, well, like, you've done all that, and well, that's all you did. You really didn't. There really wasn't any story in it.
No.
So, have you watched that show Vikings?
I like Vikings.
I do, but I said to Mum, I said, yeah, isn't it good? We'll just watch, go to the home where my mother is, and watch that. And I said, you know, sit down, watch it. Now we've just watched about 500 people being cut to pieces with swords, stabbed, heads chopped off, and some nice light entertainment for the.
Well, you know what's funny? You said 500. I was watching an interview with the gal from, I forgot her name, the main gal from Vikings, and she said they've gone through 650 extras already that in battles that have been killed. So it's, you're not far from that 500 mark, and that's really because they use casts of thousands when they need them. And it's interesting. A lot of it's filmed in Canada, in odd places in Canada. They filmed it in Ireland. They filmed in different places. It's interesting. I like the show. I'm waiting for the 6th season, I think, to come out, and that's the end of it. There's no more after that.
The one I've watched, though, first, there's 2 shows. I watched that secondly, but there was another show before called The Last Kingdom. Yes. And the Last Kingdom is from the other perspective, from the English when the Vikings invade. And then one of them, so the English so it's good to see 2 sides of it, you know. I always think it's strange when you're watching Vikings, you want to kill the British, kill the English, kill them. And then when you're watching the, you know, Last Kingdom, kill the Vikings, kill, you know, it all depends which one. It's amazing. And I thought, gee, it's so frightening how people can get everybody on side for whatever you want. And I thought, if that's like real life, isn't it?
But the funny thing is, the Vikings were so mixed into the Brits that, you know, you could really be Blanchardson. Where I come from, that was settled by the Danes.
Yes, that is so more than likely. But a lot of the people there were from. And
they mixed with everyone. So there's, you know. They completely. I mean, the Celts probably have a lot of Vikings in them, or Scandinavian. There's a lot of mix between them and the British people who were there, and all the other ones who came later. In fact, what's his name? One of the Vikings lived in northern Normandy, and that's where the Normans came from, which were really the Vikings, which invaded up that way. So it's just interesting.
I know even years ago when I went back in York, they opened up in the York, they'd excavated the old Viking village, and they did it they have it like a ghost train. You know, there's a train that goes through the old Viking village because they've excavated all the things and all the actual villages that they lived in, and then it's called the Viking Centre. So they built this huge building on the top and done like a ghost train through to take people through the actual ruins, and I thought that was even years ago. So I would expect they've improved that now, but showing you all the villages and all that, because
that's really cool.
York was a stronghold for them in the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we are pretty much out of time. Time goes fast.
It certainly does.
So anyway, Geoff, well, you have a wonderful weekend out your way. Try to stay warm. We're just the opposite. We're getting hot this weekend. So we're trying to make the best of it. Harold, you too, have a great weekend, and we will see you guys next week. I don't know, I think we may have a guest next week. I'm not sure. Learn Chat. Learn Chat. I'm on the wrong show. Take down over.
The show where you'll learn things.
Yeah, you'll learn things. Hey, today you guys learned something.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Tech Down Over. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
And we are done.